I'm here on episode number 50 of the Path to Fall podcast with Haswell and Mac Franklin. Has is the class of 79 from Gilman School, and Mac is class of 2014. And what we really want to do today is just kind of go through some Gilman memories that you guys share. There's a long history with the Franklin family and Gilman School, so I really want to touch on everything that you guys can really remember about Gilman and what the school means to you, and some of the other things that come up in conversation, because we have known each other for a while. And my dad obviously played lacrosse with Has at Hopkins and played pickleball on weekends, so we're pretty close. But I definitely want to explore your guys' connection to Gilman School today and really touch on some of the things that you hold dear about Gilman. So great to have you, and thanks for coming in, guys.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Looking forward to it.
So we can I'll try to direct the questions at either one of you, so you don't have to share the mic too much. You can kind of just speak into it. But we could start with Has and Has, just ask you maybe what it was like kind of going to Gilman for your whole life, and some of those memories on the athletic field here, because I know you're one of the all-time competitors, not only in lacrosse, but in squash and in pickleball. And I had that experience firsthand really all the time with you guys. But any really fond memories that you have playing sports at Gilman that come to mind for you?
Quite a few. When my class was when we were freshmen, that was the first year that Gilman had moved up from the B conference to the A conference in football. So we had an A conference experience from that point on. I can remember being a freshman watching the varsity, because I was on the JV, compete against, at the time, the big powerhouses were Poly, Calvert Hall, and Loyola. And then it was fun to, as a sophomore, to make the varsity football team and be on the first A conference championship football team that Gilman had. And then being part of, at that time, I feel special when it comes to sports. At Gilman, the longest win streak in the Gilman-McDonogh football rivalry. We won, I think it's either 8 or 9 in a row, and I was on the team for the last 3 victories for that. And I tell you, I'm lucky for rivalries, because when I went to Hopkins, I was part of the longest win streak that Hopkins has over Maryland, 14 or 15 straight times.
Wow.
And stuff, never losing to either one of my big rivals.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about the McDonogh-Gilman rivalry back when you were a student here at Gilman.
Well, right when I first came into school, I came in 6th grade, and that's when Coach Sotier became the new football coach. And the McDonogh had just finished having a 3 or 4 year run where they dominated the rivalry, and they won one year, I think it was 40-0 against us. And so when Coach Sotier took over, we were like a well-oiled machine, and we won boom, boom, boom. And
so it was really right away. Once Sotier took over, things changed a little bit.
Yeah, the attitude and the mentality just was perfection. He was like a Vince Lombardi type of coach. We ran the off tackle till you stopped the off tackle, and we ran it in practice every day until we did it right. And Coach Poggi, played for Coach Sotier, so he sort of brought that mentality back. And when the team was doing so well then, but it was fun. The McDonogh, I guess my senior year, because we had won, I don't know if it was 7 or 8 times, I didn't check, in a row, and McDonogh had their first really good team in about 3 or 4 years, and they thought they were going to break the win streak against us. So they had beaten Poly that year, and we had lost to Poly. We were in a 3-way tie for first place in the division, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. And they brought down 19 busloads of students to make sure every student was at the game. They had a big banner they put over the one goalpost about "Go Eagles," wherever it said on there. And while they were doing that, the big thing was that back then Notre Dame had just done this against USC, where they came out in blue uniforms and went back down before the game and changed their uniforms to green. While McDonogh came out in their orange uniforms. They hadn't worn black in who knows how many years. We had heard they were going to do it, and they changed into black uniforms with their names on the back. And they waited. Normally the visiting team comes out first, but they didn't want to come out, so we went out so they could do their big spectacle, and they came out in their different change uniforms, and the place went wild, and they were all excited. And it was a pretty good football game for the first half. I think we were only leading 7-0, but then our superior depth and coaching, because McDonogh had a new coach who actually did a good job for him, but he was a rookie in the game. And the reason I could say he was a rookie, I remember him panicking and sending plays in on paper to their quarterback, drawing up routes. Try this. Mm-hmm. You don't do that in football and stuff. And we ended up winning the game 35-8. And it was a really good memory to be given that McMorton. I was the captain of the football team with Ned Finney, and we were given the trophy for winning the rivalry, and to walk off the field with your last game knowing that you crushed McDonogh is a great feeling.
Yeah. Was that the same year you did the little prank?
Yes, that was another story.
Explain that one.
Well, we can tell that, but
we'll tell it later in the episode.
Earlier, about 10 days before the football game, we came to school, and on the big wall at the lacrosse field, they had "Go Eagles, Gilman stinks" painted on the wall, and they painted that on the blocking sleds. And we said, we're not going to let McDonogh get away with that. So we went out to McDonogh, and we painted McDonogh, and we got in a little bit of trouble because we did a better job painting than they did.
Well, I know there are a lot of traditions in terms of the relationship between Gilman and McDonogh and that football game.
They all started because of that painting incident.
And it's been back and forth ever since.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to go over to, if you went over to campus and did anything to McDonogh, bad news, and because of this guy.
Yeah, that's where
we
it started.
were the last painting class. I mean, I think the class of '75, they went, and as the story goes, they climbed up the ladder. We weren't going to do that because you get caught like they did to paint, pluck the Eagles, and the students surrounded them so they couldn't come back down till somebody came of authority to let them down with safety. We weren't going to do anything like that, but we were gentlemen and turned ourselves into Mr. Finney, and we paid our punishment.
Who were some of the players that you played with on that football team that you remember?
Well, I can tell you the big superstar on the team was Jay Wilkerson's dad, Jim Wilkerson.
Yeah,
he was the.
We got to get him on the podcast.
Oh yeah,
he was the quarterback of the team, and he was the first team all metropolitan quarterback for the state, and he was actually voted the best state in Baltimore for the year, senior year. Co-winners with a guy named Jim Chaber, ended up playing for the Orioles some. But so he was the big star there. Then Coach Poggi was one of our starting linemen, and he went on to first go to Pitt, then to Duke for college. And we had Thomas Booker's father was on the team, and his dad was a starting nose guard and tight end, and he played at Wisconsin. I played, and I went to Hopkins I played football and lacrosse down there. I was the other co-captain. I was a linebacker, and then we had Mr. Finney's son, Ned Finney, and he played football up at Delaware. He was one of the guards. Joe Carroll was a running back and safety, and he ended up playing down at Wake Forest. So we had a pretty good team, and then we had some other lacrosse players on the team. We had Ted Millspaw and Paul Danko both played down for North Carolina when they won their national championships for lacrosse, so they were on the football team and contributing pieces. But it was a good team. We had a great feeling as a team. One of the things that we did to create that atmosphere was that on Wednesday night there was the Horn and Horn Cafe down at the Rotunda, and every Wednesday night, not every player, but most of the players, we'd have 20 sometime, maybe 15, maybe 28. We'd go down there, and it was all you could eat fried chicken. And we would just eat and drink, have fun, and a couple times the coaches came down with us just to build that bonding experience that you need as a team. And it was probably the greatest feeling as a team I had for one that didn't win the championship, because we lost out for the championship game by on criteria on how they did it, because it was with the various head-to-heads and ties. But the team that won the championship, we beat during the regular season and shut them out. So we feel that we could have beaten them again.
Yeah, you really need those team bonding experiences, like the Wednesday night meals together. I mean, that's even maybe more important than some of the things that you guys do on the field, is getting together outside of practice, outside of school, and getting to know each other better.
Right. I think that's made the team special.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah, cool. So Mac, tell me a little bit about what you remember about the Gilman-McDonogh rivalry and what that was like when you were in school here in class of 2014.
Well, my last memory was tears. I believe we lost by 31, or it was like 37-6. So that was not the best memory. But I remember one of my first memories before I even came to Gilman was going to
When did you come to Gilman again?
I came in sixth grade,
Came in
so
sixth grade, too?
'07 fall. But I think it was like right before, I think I was applying to Gilman, and I came to the Gilman McDonogh game. It was at Gilman, or maybe McDonogh. I don't know. But I remember just a lot of electricity, just a very, very fun vibe. My dad was proud, my grandfather was proud, and we really wanted to beat McDonogh. And like kind of color association, when you see blue and gray, I think Gilman. And just from the time I was a little kid, it meant a lot, and it was cool to play. Like I was a long snapper. I didn't, we were pretty good when I was here, so I had to find a way onto the field. But it was cool to be a part of the rivalry. That my dad and uncles played a pretty big part back in the 70s and 80s. We came a little short when I was there, but to be a part of it's definitely special.
How about the pep rally? Tell me a little bit about the pep rallies.
So I was actually in the pep rally my senior year. I was a Gilman Raider a few times, and when I was there, I don't know if it's still allowed, but we would make fun of McDonogh for being farm people, hillbillies. And we had my friend Vincent come in with his big F-150, maxed out, and he kidnapped a bunch of our captains. And then I was in like a ghillie suit hiding under like a trash can in the stands. We all come out and have this big brawl. But
I've seen videos of skydivers, helicopters.
yeah, that I think was my 8th grade year. J.D. Kameen set that up. But I think the coolest thing about the pep rally is you wake up that Friday and it just feels different. It's a dress down day. Everyone's in their blue and gray. You're all ready to smack McDonogh, and you get out of class for a little bit, so that's kind of cool. But there's definitely that whole camaraderie aspect where you don't wake up super excited to go to school every day, but pep rally day, definitely you wake up a little bit earlier. You ask mom to get you to school a little bit earlier, and you want to take it all in.
Yeah, and even though there's so much back and forth between the two schools, there's also a lot of respect. And I know that like the class president goes and speaks in front of the student body, and there's the shared respect, even though there's a lot of taunting and that kind of thing between McDonogh and Gilman.
Yeah, and it goes to
respect.
After high school too. A couple of my good friends went to McDonogh that I went to school with at Dickinson, and that rivalry kind of makes you friends. You don't really know that many kids freshman year, but you remember, oh, that person went to McDonogh. We can smack talk a little bit, but have that shared experience, and kind of latch on to each other and know that, hey, if there's no one really here in the social setting, I can always talk to the McDonogh kid because we have that kind of that connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know what year, I may have been a father watching the boys' pep rallies, but Gilman brought like the Morgan State band back to play, and they aren't as big as the Florida A&M band, but they sure can play a good thing. So it was a good experience.
I'm also interested in talking about some of your most fondly remembered coaches and teachers who made a really big impact on you when you were both here. So if there's some teachers that really stand out to you that had a huge hand in your life and in your educational experience here at Gilman, that would be, I think, interesting to hear more about.
Yeah, there's several. I was fortunate. I was in school with Mr. Finney, and he was a role model for everybody and stuff. So he's remembered. And Coach Sotier, was a football coach that I loved playing for, and it was nice. And heck, he got me to help coach football with him at Friends, to coach his grandson, 20 some years later, which was a great experience. But then it was fun that the wrestling coach was Coach Brown, and he was the offensive line coach and defensive coordinator for the football team. So I got him in football and wrestling. And then we had Coach Allen, who was the lacrosse coach, and he's just a really nice person. And when I was in the upper school, he won 2 out of 4 of the time. 2 of the 4 years we were in upper school, we won the MSA A conference, which is now the MIAA lacrosse championship. So he had quite the did a good job with all of us there too. And that's another good championship stories we can tell there.
for me, right off the top of the head was my advisor, Mr. Guline. Never had him in the classroom, unfortunately. I don't know how Gilman let that happen, but he was my coach, my advisor, and mentor, and to this day we still text from time to time, and Happy New Year's, Happy Birthdays. So he definitely big part of Gilman. And then just thinking to a senior year elective I took was villains and anti-heroes with Mr. Hastings, and that was a fun class. I'm not the biggest reader, or in terms of like analyzing.
You got your book rack.
Yeah, I've got a rack. Don't worry, I've got a rack. But I wasn't, I guess, back in time, always looking to get excited into the literary depth of Othello. But Mr. Hastings made it super fun, and he did different things to get you engaged because he probably knew that a lot of us took it because of him. So I'm pretty sure the senior year elective is kind of his baby. I know he does different theme every few years. So those two teachers were really awesome for me. And then coach-wise, I'd probably have to say Biff Poggi. I tried to quit the football team actually junior year, and I don't know. I mean, I didn't feel like I contributed to wins or losses, but he had all the coaches and himself calling me, telling me, "Hey man, we want you to be part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, trust me, you're a part of the team." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like the 60th guy on the bench. Like, why do you want me on the team? But no regrets. We won the championship. Camaraderie. I'd like to call myself a glue guy type of thing. I don't think I ever played a meaningful down that season, but you make memories, and it was cool to feel wanted, even though I don't think me playing made a difference in the season.
What was Biff like as a football coach for you?
He wanted you to be great, but not because he wanted to be great. He saw like the potential in everyone, and then he honestly, it was about building men for others. It's so cliche, but he truly, like I told you, it didn't matter if you were a long snapper or a kid off the top of my head. Brian Applefeld was the signal caller. He wanted you on the team. He wanted you to grow. Wanted you to become the best player and person you can be. And I thought for how long was he here? 20 years or
as a coach? I think,
about 20 years. I thought he did that, and I'm sure there's hundreds of other guys that would say the same exact thing.
One of the neat things for me as a parent alum was that the different teachers that were still at Gilman when my kids came, and to see them involved or teammates like Biff and I were classmates that he's teaching the kids. But I can remember John Schmick was the headmaster. He was my JV defensive lacrosse coach, and he's the goalie coach. Bob Smith was the actual defense coach.
Donnie Rogers.
But Don Rogers wasn't here with me.
Whoops.
But Don was
Mr. Wolf then.
Mr. Wolf, he was one. Don Abrams in the middle school was a French teacher when I was here, but he was teaching computer science when the boys were there. I think
Culbertson's.
Ron Culbertson was here in the very beginning when the first kids. So it's neat to see that to carry on. And then the other aspect as a parent here that I see and appreciate even more is what the Gilman faculty members do. I mean, they care about their students and stuff. I can't tell you how many times driving one of the kids up to school, getting them here at 7:15 to meet a teacher who's taking the extra time to help them get their work so they can be ready to do. And people really need to understand how much the faculty does. You don't see that as a student really per se, but I really appreciate it as a parent alum.
Office hours, they really preach that. I'm sure it's still a thing, but I remember if you weren't doing well, a teacher, they sought you out to be like, hey, how can we correct this? And I'm sure there's thousands of schools that do the same thing, but at Gilman it is cool because, Mr. Guline still will text me Happy New Year. We're probably not that close, but he was my advisor, and there's that relationship that if you choose to, it can carry you through for the rest of your life, because that's the type of place Gilman is.
And my father had the same thing as George Chandlee taught my dad. I had George Chandlee. We have Chandlee Field. And my father always reminds me that when he was in the upper school, they won the championship 4 years in lacrosse, not just 2. And George Chandlee was the coach, and they had a 50-some game winning streak. We had Mr. Gamper, who at the time, my father tells a story, he was in Mr. Gamper's very first class that he taught at Gilman, and they all became such good friends with him that when Mr. Gamper got married, that he and a bunch of his classmates actually got invited to the wedding.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Having gone to school here, been a parent here, and kind of seen the transformation from the time you were here at Gilman to when Mac graduated, and having been involved with the school for so long, what are some of the biggest things that you think have changed and stayed the same at Gilman over the years?
I think that the school really has stayed a lot to its core, but we've changed like society's changed. We're more willing to listen to the non-dominant point of view and stuff. I mean,
the little guy
and stuff. Where before, they may not have been as open to hear somebody who was when we were in school, be a piano player but now they're much more welcoming to all types of and molding all types of young boys into men and stuff like that. But it's but they're still true to their core of making sure that we do things on our own and that honor code and integrity and stuff like that.
Gilman 5, baby.
Gilman 5. And athletics have been so central at Gilman for, and to this day for sure. But we were talking about it yesterday on the pod because I had Boo Smith on yesterday, and we were talking about how just what you said, art is very central to who Gilman is, and music and theater. And it's very well-rounded and open and welcoming place. And even though athletics is the core of Gilman, right, the student-athlete model and the teacher-coach model, there's so many other aspects that make Gilman an awesome place for everyone. So I think, I see that too, and that's one of the reasons I really like Gilman at first is could teach English, could coach lacrosse, and they also had an art department, which interested me at the beginning as we're walking through the halls and seeing all the artwork hanging up. So
allows you to do a podcast.
Yeah, podcast, everything. It's well-rounded. It's a well-rounded environment.
The biggest change that I've seen in Gilman is not so much with the faculty, it's in the students. And what I mean by that is that when I was in school, before I was in school, says all the good athletes played sports in the fall, winter, and spring. Now, because of how society has changed, you get students concentrating. I'm only going to play football, or I'm only going to play lacrosse. And a school Gilman size and smaller cannot be successful in as many sports if your students don't play multiple sports. I mean, back in the 70s, Gilman was dominant in football and lacrosse because half the team who played football, they all played lacrosse. So you had good athletes playing football and lacrosse. You don't see that combination of athletes. And Mr. Wilkerson, he was a 3-sport athlete. I was a 3-sport athlete. Joe Carroll was a 3-sport athlete. And so we had all these guys that did multiple sports. And it
was like encouraged.
Right.
Even when I was there, I remember the Holmans would play multiple sports. Paul Danko would play multiple sports. Reed Barger. These are all guys older than me. I mean, in my grade alone, Garrett Pfeiffer, Willie McBride, they all played tons of sports. And I'm pretty sure the last time we made the playoffs in lacrosse was my senior year. So, being a specialist can be good, but like you said, being well-rounded has its advantages as well. You use muscles that you wouldn't use in lacrosse that you use in football. You get a different style of coaching. You can it's like a puzzle. You can add more pieces to it or figure out the right pieces by getting those different points of view instead of just focusing on that, instead of having like tunnel vision.
Right.
I guess.
Right, and I think football for sure is one sport that is really almost super important for lacrosse players to play because it does teach you a lot of the physical aspects of the sport of lacrosse.
Toughens you out.
Yeah, toughness, ground balls, contact, just not being afraid of...
Welcoming contact.
Right, welcoming contact. A lot of those parts of lacrosse that I think you need to be competitive.
Yeah, I could tell you, funny, it definitely does. And then when my junior year was the year that we won #1 for lacrosse. It's kind of funny when I see how the poor lacrosse teams are here. And before the season started, I remember Coach Allen told us, we're going out there and have fun, guys. People think we're the worst Gilman lacrosse team that they've had in 50 years or whatever. And we just, again, like the football team, we had that camaraderie team thing. And I remember the News American was a paper then, and they had to call them a team of this, call them a team of that, but always stress the word team, because we won 6 games by 1 goal and won the championship. But no matter what, we were going to win that game at the end. But most of the guys on the team that started both ways, we had Mike Sotier football team, Mike Davis football team, Jim Wilkerson football team, Has Franklin football team, David McDonogh football. So we had a lot of multiple sport guys. And Ray Cameron, I think he played defense and soccer. You had Todd Parker, he played soccer and lacrosse. So you had people who were playing multiple sports and 3-sport athletes. And it helps because there's a place like Gilman, you only have limited spots. So you just can't fill the classes up with, well, I got 10 football players, 10 lacrosse players, this. Well, how about the guy who wants to play the guitar, this and that? So you've got to have people that are able and want to do more than one to be successful.
How do you think playing multiple sports helped you as an athlete?
Well, I think that it helped me because keep competitive. You're more competitive all the time. When you're not playing a sport in the off season, you're just training it. That's not competition. So it's the competition, and then you're also using different muscles and training and things like that. And I think that's the most important part. You're not overusing muscles at a younger age and stuff like that, because different things. But the competitive, you compete more, and you need to learn how to compete, because that's what you're doing the whole time.
And the burnout. I know friends that focus on lacrosse for 5-6 straight years, prodigies, some would say, and then they get to college and they don't like lacrosse anymore, played it too much. And I just know, while certain kids really love to play lacrosse, like William McBride, he was this amazing lacrosse player in my class, but he also loved to play basketball. He was our point guard for Gilman basketball team, and I think him playing basketball made him really good lacrosse player. He was so quick on his feet, and he was able to do, just create these different angles that you might not necessarily see in lacrosse, but he learned it in basketball, which, allowed him to go to North Carolina and be a pretty good player. So definitely an advocate of the multiple sports.
So guys, thinking about Gilman as a place, what are some of the, and we've covered some of this, but what do you think really makes Gilman, out of all the independent schools in this area, unique and special and maybe different from other places?
I'm going to say pride. Like, I know I'm very prideful that I went to Gilman, my dad went to Gilman, my brothers went to Gilman, my grandfather went to Gilman. We all graduated on time and hope to represent it well, but beyond camaraderie, like my best friends are still from my class at Gilman. I have a funny story actually. I wanted to bring this on the podcast. So the Lumen Center came in, I believe, my 7th grade year. They were building it then, and we had to bring in our own lunches. But then my 8th grade year, or whenever they started doing it, the food came in, and they incorporated the food as part of the tuition. The food was solid, but some days were better than others. But then there was one day that was just the golden day. It reigned supreme, and it was chicken tenders. And we would get pretty rowdy for chicken tenders. And as 8th graders with the 7th and 6th graders, we're probably a little too rough in terms of getting to the line. They took away our tenders. But I remember a bunch of kids in my class, I want to say it was probably Kyle Tarantino or Tyler Wakefield, probably behind this master plan. But we organized a 4th period boycott of school, and we spelled out tenders with our body on what is now Sotier, the Sotier field. We sang a tenders theme song, and we demanded we got tenders back, and eventually we did get our tenders back. But it's just memories like that where it's so silly, and you think, what are we even doing? But you get 90 boys to come around chicken tenders and doing it at Gilman, and Gilman, they were cool about it. They weren't mean to us, they understood it, but that's just a memory I have from the camaraderie of Gilman.
The friendships you make, and
tenders. We Gilman, oh Gilman, we had tenders, oh tenders.
Oh my gosh. That's good. Haz, how about you? What is something that you think that separates Gilman from other places or makes Gilman a unique school?
I think a commitment to excellence and stuff. I mean, Gilman. When you go to Gilman, everybody's striving to be the best they can be. And some of the other schools, they admit, hey, we don't do that because we don't want to scare people off, and they make it a little bit easier and stuff. But I think you can do and strive to be the best and still do it in a loving and caring way. I think Gilman does that. And so if they don't just do it and throw the people off because the faculty cares, they want to make sure everybody strives to be the best. And it's just that you have to make that commitment. If you're willing to make that commitment, Gilman's willing to work with you. And I think that's the main difference.
What ways do you think that commitment to excellence really set you both up for the next step of your life? Maybe it was college, maybe it's the professional world, but what are some things that you learned here at Gilman that you really took with you when you graduated?
In terms of academics, just the standard of excellence, as my dad's talking about. Like when I got to Dickinson College, which is a pretty good liberal arts school, but I didn't find it easy, but I just found it more naturally what the professors were asking of us. Oh, read this, write this type of paper, mark it up, annotate, take notes, participate. Like, if I didn't go to Gilman, a participation grade probably scared me a little bit, but when I'm like, oh, participation is 35% of the grade, I'm like, okay, this is a class that legitimately have a good chance to get a high grade in because I know, okay, they just want to see engaged effort, show that you care, and build on some skills from the beginning of the class to the end of the class. I think just preparation is something that you don't even realize it's happening, but they prepare you to succeed, almost in like a mindset type of way. You want to be surrounded by winners. That's what Gilman does. I remember there was a guy in my class, his name was Richard Shin, unreal pianist. And I don't want to say he was the number one and whatever, but he was by far and away one of the most talented musicians I've ever seen. And we have someone like that in our grade, that pushes you to want to be better in something else. Or you have someone like Chibuzo Kondo, who went to Navy, played football there. And he's serving right now. You're like, okay, that's someone that motivates you, it inspires you. But I think it all comes from Gilman laying that foundation, believing in us and showing us that, hey, we see some potential in you, see it in yourself. Let's work together, and you guys are going to be able to do some great things.
Mm-hmm. For sure, yeah.
It's the people. Gilman people, and we learned how to accept people for who they are and what they are, and stuff, and have friends from all different parts of life. Because that was the one thing that Gilman did. Because back when I was if you went to public school, everybody in your neighborhood, mm-hmm. and everybody in your neighborhood may look the same and may have the same kind of income. Well, you come to Gilman, we had people from parts of Baltimore City that they were getting help and stuff. They had to ride a bus to school all day long and stuff. You learn to be friends with them and interact, and it was important.
Even past graduating, you see someone that went to Gilman, probably going to say hi, and it's not going to be awkward. I know in my grade at Dickinson, 2 kids went to Dickinson with me from Gilman. We weren't the best friends, but if you're alone at the lunch hall or you see them passing by, you're going to say what's up, and you're going to catch up. And there's even older guys like Palmer Murray and Lynn Worthington and Jack Feckety, who I'm there as a freshman. I don't really know what I'm doing, but because I went to Gilman, they reach out and say some things. They don't even know me, but it's just the fact that, hey, I went to Gilman, he went to Gilman, probably got some similarities. Why don't we try to, help this kid out?
Right. You always have that connection together.
Yeah, and Gilman's done a great job. I mean, I look at my classmates, and I like to think I've done well in my life and in different areas. But God, we had Biff, and who became one of the best high school coaches in the area. I had John Jacobson, who's one of the top hedge fund managers. He's the one that made the primary gift for the Lumen Center. Brian Sullivan, he ran for governor of the state of Minnesota. He was on the cover of People's Magazine for some water treatment business that he had. Rick Snyder, he's currently the Inspector General of the Navy. He's a 3-star admiral.
Wow.
So his job is to make sure every naval ship and base is ready for action for whatever they have to do. So I mean, we have you're surrounded by people, and guess what? They all care about other people. It wasn't like they got to where they were and they don't care. They give them back and stuff, and that's the neat part about it.
Yeah, and when something tragic happens in your life, the people that reach out are your Gilman friends. I mean, other people do too, but I always notice, like on a birthday or whenever something big happens in my life, the majority of it is Gilman classmates. And it's probably, a lot of it, that's the extent of our relationship over text and stuff, but it's nice to know that, hey, we're still thinking about each other, even though we haven't seen each other in 4 or 5 years, but it's like, hey, we went to Gilman together for 7 years, and there's a lifelong bond that comes with it, and if we pick up where we left off.
It's overlapping. It's like I can think of like Tim Holly was my teammate.
Mm-hmm.
He's here, coached football, coached basketball, baseball, athletic director now. He's special assistant and alumni relation. He was a nice person then. He's a nicer person now. Nick Sloter was a few years behind, but his father was our teacher, was a great teacher. It's fun because Nick coaches football down at Hopkins, and I played football at Hopkins. I like to follow there, and that connection. So many connections in life all over, just showing that it's a small world.
You'll even get like my roommate Coleman, his little brother and my little brother, both in the same class. So like right there we have 2 dynamic duos in the same class that kind of like intertwined, and their class really knew us, our class really knew them. And by the time they were seniors, they're running the school because people have been coming up to them since they were little, like, oh, I know your brother. And I don't know, for me it was cool. My senior year, I had both my brothers in the upper school, which is hard to do if you don't have twins. Like, we had a senior, a junior, and a freshman. What
was that like at Gilman when all the Franklin boys were in the same building?
From a student's point of view, it was probably pretty fun. From a faculty point of view, it's a little chaotic. I'll admit, but I don't know. It was first word that comes to mind, just awesome. Walk in the hallways, bump my brother in the lockers. Then the little one comes out of nowhere. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then I'll be in the senior room, and Drew would be helping selling jerky with Vincent Posterly, and come to the senior room, and all the seniors are like, "You're not allowed in here." But he's like throwing up his VP jerky credentials. He's like, "Actually, I am allowed in here," and it just fun.
Gilman's connections are for life. I mean, as an example, Chris Lynch, who's a year ahead of us at me at Gilman, I think he's the chief of staff for Ben Cardin's senator office. At one time, Rick Snyder, our friend who's the 3-star admiral, his job was air defense of North America. So anytime somebody wanted to have a flyover for their stadium or event, they had to get approval through Rick. Well, Chris doesn't realize that's Rick, and he's over here and he calls up this office, and he says, "Who's I have to speak to Rick Snyder." "Hey, I think I went to school with him." "Hey, Rick, Chris Lynch here. I'm the chief of staff for Ben Cardin. We want to get a military flyover." "No problem, Chris." Just little things like that. And then Rick tells about, I forget the general's name, who was in Bob Ehrlich's class, who was running the Afghanistan war thing. They were working together at the Pentagon, and Gilman comes up, and they just bonded over that. So it's a really neat little thing. It's like, it's a miniature version of like Hopkins and the Ivy League, where your alumni are successful and they take care of each other.
You feel the same way about Hopkins that you do about Gilman in terms of these long-lasting connections, or is it even more tightly entwined at
Gilman's more tightly entwined because all the students, and I have friends who aren't really who aren't necessarily athletes. They were the other aspect too, so you connect there. At Hopkins, my experience is slightly different than a lot of, because I commuted the whole time. I never lived down on campus and stuff. But my teammates for lacrosse and football and things, we're very touched there. I don't have as many friends outside the athletic part because Hopkins is very focused on the academics, and you made them your freshman year in the dorms. And so it's a different part. But I think that
Too
some
afraid
of
the dorms.
I think some of the in other schools it probably could be close to that.
We talked about playing being a two-sport athlete, being a multi-sport athlete at Gilman, but when you went to Hopkins, did you find that pretty hard to manage playing football and lacrosse at the same time?
And wrestling.
And wrestling. And wrestling.
Three, yeah.
Three-sport athlete at Hopkins.
He's got 10 varsity letters.
I think,
Crazy.
I don't know the official date, but somewhere from like 1950 on, I probably have more varsity letters than any other male athlete at Hopkins and stuff. I can't say that at Gilman because I have some classmates that got 4 years on the varsity. I only did 3 for 3 years and 4 for lacrosse. But Gilman helped me be able to do that because Gilman taught me the discipline to manage my schedule so I could play 3 sports. If I didn't have that,
you don't see that at all nowadays. The three-sport athlete in college.
It's hard. There were only 10 of us at that point in time, my senior year, and that they thought there was only one. Then they found there were 9 other students who were playing 3 sports throughout the country. But you had to have good discipline. And Gilman, I was used to it because I played football, wrestle, and lacrosse here. So I had the routine, the schedule, and it was easy to continue.
I wasn't as successful, but I agree. It was fall season, then winter season, you're just in the next mode. Spring season, there was never like a break, but that didn't matter. You were excited to get to the next thing.
Yeah. Looking forward to the next sport.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, you have a book recommendation. I know Mac does. I don't know if Haz does, but let's get to that and discuss what you brought in here.
This one is called "The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Told: A True Tale of 3 Gamblers, the Kentucky Derby, and the Mexican Cartel" by Mark Paul. I don't want to give too much away, but it's pretty interesting. It's fun. It's a fun read. Being from Baltimore, I'm a pretty avid horse racing guy. The Preakness, I've watched it probably every year of my life, and it's on my. I've been to the Preakness. I've been to the Belmont. I want to go to the Kentucky Derby, but this story kind of infused. Reminded me of my friend. If my friends and I were willing to risk it all. It was 3 buddies, got an idea and kind of got carried away with it, and spoke a lot to me where, they were just kind of chasing that dream. And kind of, everyone thinks the path of life is a straight path, but there's so many ups and downs, and the valleys really help you get to the peaks, and they had some valleys in here, but...
Who recommended this book to you? How did you find it?
So actually, I actually looked up books I wanted for Christmas, and I found this book, and I just asked him to get it for me for Christmas, and he did. I don't really gamble, but everything behind it kind of excited me.
Awesome, cool. Well, I'll have to check it out. And Haz, did you have a book recommendation?
I do. There's 2 types of book reading. I read a lot of.
Only 2 in the entire world.
No, for me, I read a lot of historic type of fiction novels, and I like reading. I enjoyed reading the books by Jeff Sahara on the Civil War. He wrote. His father wrote The Killer Angels, so he wrote The Last Full Measures, Guides and Generals, and all these books about the Civil War. And he put his own personal bits to give us insight into the various leaders of the time, from Sherman to Grant to Lee, and I found that interesting and stuff. And then if you're looking for a book and you want to run a business, it's a book by Jack Mitchell called Hug Your Customers. And it's about how important it is to make your customers feel special, and that's how you become successful.
Customer service.
Yeah.
Awesome. Couple great ones. And guys, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing some stories, some memories from your time at Gilman. And we'll see you on the pickleball court soon.
Got one last thing. For the North podcast coming out. If you like Ravens football and you like AFC North, just be on the lookout. We've got you covered. Had to do the plug.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jake.